Hi, we are live, and I want to welcome all of you back or say hello if this is the first time that you see me. This is a daily live stream that I am working on during the quarantine where I am interviewing different professionals from around the world, and they're telling me how they are dealing with the quarantine. But every episode has a little bit of a focus. And in this episode, I am going to be having a conversation with Robert Cornish, and I want to tell you a little bit about him, because I want you to get as excited about him as I am. So, in 2008, all right, he decided to build an agency focused on communication strategies that support sales growth for business to business technology related companies. He bootstrapped with zero capital in the middle of a financial meltdown. I lived through that. I know what that was like. And he just went forward and he did that. So Richter then went on to make the Inc. 5000 list comprised of the fastest growing companies in America 5 times. Richter also made the Silicon Valley Fast 50 4 times and the Entrepreneur 360 Award 2 times. Robert has been featured in Bloomberg Businessweek, Selling Power Magazine, Inc. Magazine, and Idea Magazine. He's been a guest speaker for ACG Los Angeles, IASA Summit, West Point, and been interviewed for 33 Voices on Truepreneurship Podcast and Idea Magazine by Northwood University. In 2012, Wiley & Sons published his book, What Works, about the lessons he's learned while growing his agency from startup, navigating his way to a multi-million-dollar agency. Robert currently owns 4 companies, and today we're going to be talking about how it's so important to continue to enable our sales teams to be working during the quarantine and maybe talk about some best practices. We'll see where the conversation goes. So without any further ado, here's Robert. Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for being in the show today. So tell me, we had a conversation last week because we wanted to know what this conversation was going to be about. And I have so many notes from our conversation because I feel like everything you said was fascinating. But I feel like one of the things that you talked about was I've been hearing a lot about stopping sales and stopping, like a lot of people are kind of freezing certain projects and they're justifiably they're scared, right? And you were the first person that I talked to that you were kind of doing the opposite. So why don't you tell me what you guys are doing over at your companies?
Well, I think, it's anchored in my feeling of the economy. There's a couple causes that are very close to my heart, and one of them is economy, and one of them is the environment. And I'm very passionate about these two things. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I can hear you fine. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
great.
also just making sure that YouTube and everything is kind of going well. So
Great.
I'll be doing a little check-in every
Great.
once in a while.
Great. So I think that it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than just Richter. A big part of my drive is that the economy is an engine, and just like an engine in a car, you can't take out the air filter or the air pump or a spark plug. It's an engine that requires all component parts, and it has to drive forward. And so, as it relates to selling, I've seen a lot of people say, don't sell right now, and have empathy and things like that. And look, I definitely think you need to have empathy, but I think you need to sell absolutely. And I think that the economy is an engine that cannot stop. It needs to move forward, and everybody has to play their role and contribute to that engine. And that means companies are freight trains that don't stop. They need to sell. They absolutely need to sell. Have compassion for your prospects. Have compassion for the situation that they're in. But by no means should you not sell. In fact, I think right now is the time where you need to sell even more, as much as you possibly can, because it's bigger than you and it's bigger than your company. And the economy is dependent on people selling, and it is dependent on flows. It's dependent on things going around, money changing hands, and if people stop, it's going to create havoc from the economy, right? It's going to create massive levels of destruction that will affect everybody, and I don't believe in that. I believe that people need to sell like crazy, honestly, and I think that they need to be doing everything they can to give the economy a leg up. And from Richter's standpoint, I've always believed that we're economic instigators. I've always believed that part of our job is to push our clients to do more, because a lot of our clients are major companies, And we want them to do more. We want them to grow. We want them to drive, because a lot of these people are employing all of these people, are paying for these people. The last thing I want to see is people furloughing their people or firing their people. I don't want to see that. That's not good for anybody, and that's going to have a trickle-down effect to absolutely everyone. And everyone's going to get hurt by that. And so my mission is really to push our own sales and play our role in our sphere of influence. And for us, look, that may mean 50 or 100 phone calls per day. That may mean, sending out 100, 200, 300, 1,000 one-to-one messages to clients and working that angle as much as possible. But I know for my agency, my people are dependent on us. We've not cut anyone. We're not going to put anyone on furlough. Our mission is to succeed and push through it. And I believe firmly that that's what the economy needs. And so that's why I don't agree with the message of don't sell now, because I think that message will run out. It'll run out of time. And when people need to pay rent or they need to buy groceries, unfortunately, it's an economic world we live in. And I don't think it's being sensitive or empathetic by not selling. I think being sensitive or empathetic is selling, and making sure that everyone is taken care of and everybody's contributing to the motion.
That's amazing. After we had our conversation, and can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. After we had that conversation last week, I thought about that too, because I feel like I have had the pleasure, honor, luck to be very busy during this time and to continue to produce and do a lot of work during this time. And in a way, there was just a part of me that felt almost a little guilty, because there was just so much terrible, people losing their jobs and everything. And I felt kind of ashamed to talk about it, because I felt like it wasn't my place to say I'm busy, I am working, I have projects coming in, because it just felt insensitive. And I might not bring it all the time. I'm not going to gloat about it, but I do feel like now it's really my responsibility that if I do have work coming in, to do it and to really let the people that I work with know that we're here and we're open for business, right? We're still
100%.
delivering.
100%.
And that's important. And there's no need to hide. There's no need to say like, all right, let's take things easy, because the reality is that I'm in a very fortunate situation where I don't have to take it easy. We can continue to work.
Yeah.
We can do the same animation from our bedrooms that we can do from the office.
Yeah.
So why stop? Other people have to stop, but we don't.
No.
So it is kind of our duty to continue. So tell me, Robert, I know your sales teams probably know you very well at this point. You're all your different companies, but when this started to happen and you had that first meeting, what was their reaction, and what did you come prepared saying? Were they surprised that you had this viewpoint? Probably not. But tell me about that first meeting after the quarantine.
I think people know me pretty well. They know how I am, and I'm usually they know how I am. I'm pretty consistent, and I think that I did a Zoom call with everybody. I got everybody on a Zoom call, everybody in the entire company, and I just let them know. I said, look, a lot of people are cutting people and putting people on furlough, and there's going to be a lot of people that lose their jobs, and I was just incredibly transparent with everybody, and I said, look, it may mean that things are going to be tight. It may mean that we have to go a lot harder, but it also means that every single person here is now their role plus sales, right? And so if you're an animator, you're an animator plus sales. If you're production plus sales. If you're VP production or VP marketing, you're VP marketing plus sales, right? Every single person needs to lean in. We're going to make sure that we don't fire people. We're going to make sure that we don't furlough people, but I need your help and I need you to lean in, and I need every single person to do everything they can, because safeguarding Richter is one of the best things we can do. If we're in a good position, we can help other people who aren't in a good position. We may be the company that hires somebody who got fired. We may be the company that donates to a restaurant that needs funds. We may be the company that people at our company help our neighbor with bread or groceries or whatever. Somebody has to be strong. When other people are down, someone has to be up to pull the other people who are down. And I believe that it's our duty to succeed and do well. And so I just told people, look, I get it. A lot of people are nervous. A lot of people are panicking and scared. We don't need to be like that, right? We're very fortunate the situation that we're in. We've got good clientele, but I believe wholeheartedly that every single situation could be outworked. And I believe the entrepreneurial spirit, even if you have a restaurant, the entrepreneurial spirit, there's always a way. There's always a way to problem solve it. Whether it's, you shrink down the menu, you focus on one item per night, and you deliver family meals, and your waiters that were waiters now deliver it to people's porches and text message them when they're ready. There's always a way, and you can always innovate, but you have to do the work, and you have to think smart, and you got to push through. And this is what I basically told my people. And I just wanted to be very transparent with them. Like, look, is it going to be hard? Yeah, it's going to be hard, but we're going to push through. But I need everybody given everything that they've got to make sure that our company is safeguarded, and we play our role to drive the economy in whatever role we have, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I actually believe, the easy play is just to fire people and shrink. I don't believe in that model. And I understand sometimes it's unavoidable. I do understand that. But I also think that, years ago I had a company back in 2003, 2004, and there was a very hard period for us. And I'll never forget this, but we were doing investment real estate deals, and there was a very hard period for myself personally. And I remember that I didn't rise to the situation in that scenario, and there were some financial strains and different things that happened in my life at that point. And I realized that what my potential is, I wasn't doing my potential, and I wasn't outworking the situation, and I could have, and it bugged me to this day. And I remember swearing to myself that I will never let that happen. If circumstances show up, I will never not outwork it, right? And so I looked at that scenario, and I had a lot of negative things happen to me in my life during that point, and I just swore never again. That's never going to happen again, right? Because I know deep down, I've been through it. I've personally done these things, and I worked, outworked that situation and outworked 2008. I know that you can outwork things. And I think that a lot of people are going to quit, or they're going to back out, or they're going to blame the circumstances. But so I have kind of a harsher view on that. I just believe that they're not innovating. They're not studying enough books. They're not outworking the situation. And I don't mean to be harsh on people, because I do understand there's a lot of really tough situations. But I know for myself that I've gone both ways. I've gone in situations where I outworked it, and I've gone in situations where I didn't. And the only person to blame is really myself. And I swore I would never do that again. And people count on me, and my people are counting on me. My family's counting on me. The economy's counting on me. And now is the time. Now is the time to push. And I believe wholeheartedly that if everybody does that, we'll be the better for it.
Wow. Yeah. So you started your company in 2008. So you're not, you have definitely experienced what a big problem looks like for a country. What is your viewpoint on handling problems?
Well, as we had in our earlier conversation, 2008 was hard. It was hard. That was the toughest business environment I've ever been in. And I remember, that was my fourth company that I had started. When I started Richter in 2008, that was the fourth company I had started. The previous one I had worked on and built it to 1.3 million. We were doing real estate, and again, it was small, a couple partners, things like that. But then I built Richter, and going through what we had to go through in 2008 was incredible. It challenged me at every aspect. But going back to what we talked about in the other conversation, just my viewpoint on problems. I just have this perspective that I don't know where I realized this, but I realized that somewhere along the line, I realized that problems are only problems in present time. In other words, when you're at that exact moment in your life, it's a problem, and you're looking at Mount Everest or whatever, it looks massive, right? But I tell this to myself, I tell this to my people, I tell this to everybody. If you think about a problem that you had over the last 5 or 10 years in your life, and you get that image in your mind, you think about the biggest problem you could think of that you had in the last 5 or 10 years, and you look at that problem from right here where you are, and you'll look back and you realize that that problem was essentially, you got over it, you got past it. It was essentially a molehill from where you're looking right now, and you scratch your head and think, why was that such a big problem to me? And so I always tell my team and tell myself that solve your problem from the future, right? Your future self knows how to solve that problem, and project yourself out in the future and really try and get away from that problem so you can look at it from a distance and solve it from the future, because I promise you, you will solve it. And it doesn't help to get all worked up about the problem in present time, staring up at Mount Everest and going, oh my gosh. You got to get some distance between you and that problem and have some perspective to realize that it's only a problem because it's in present time, right? So you got to get some space there and kind of solve it from your future self, and keep looking at it from a distance. Get objective about the problem, and you'll find a way. But look at any problem in your entire life, any problem you've ever had in your entire life, and just look at it from here, and you'll find that somehow you got past it. I can say that for myself, every single problem I've ever had, even if it was blown out of proportion at the time, from here, it's just no big deal. From here, it's just some little bump in the road.
Hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yeah, it is. And also it validates your own power. It validates your own ability. You realize, wow, I can get past anything, and when the faster you realize that, the more you realize, okay, let me shrink this problem down and realize it's probably not as big as I'm making it out to be. And, I heard this line the other day from Tony Robbins. He said something, and he said, ask the right questions. Like, don't ask yourself, what do I do? Ask yourself, what do I want? And sometimes just pivoting your questions, even what the kinds of questions that you're asking yourself, is important. Maybe you might be asking yourself questions that are very introverting and very internalizing, and as opposed to being objective and looking out in the future.
Wow. Yeah. Asking the right questions, I feel like it just changes your complete framework, right? And I feel like what we say to ourselves does matter, and what questions we ask of ourselves does matter. And it's how you start your day is, what am I going to get done today? If you ask yourself, how much work am I going to do versus how much am I going to accomplish versus how many people am I going to help versus those questions are very similar, and you might end up doing the same things to accomplish each of those, but your attitude facing that task is different. If you're thinking, for me, when I changed my viewpoint from sales, from selling, I hated sales. I'm an artist. I don't sell, right? If you like my work, you hire me. And if you don't, then don't hire me, right? So I hated sales. But then I realized that I needed to communicate what I did with people, and I needed to communicate it in the best way that they would understand. And I felt like if I really did feel, and it still happens, if I do feel like I am the best option for that person or that company and what they want to achieve, I do push a little bit harder because I care for them. I want that project to be done right. And I feel like my company is the one to do it right because we've done it, or we're also passionate about it, or whatever. And for me, sales is very much helping. I want to help you. I want to work with you. And I know that thing that you want to accomplish, I can help you get there. So why wouldn't we do this together? And frankly, if they don't like that attitude, then it's good that we don't work together, because I'll always be very authentic in our in the working relationship.
Well, I think also what is sales? What is sales? I think when you look at it, I look at sales as just human to human communication. And I love communication. And I love communicating with other human beings. And if I can help them, great. If we can't, fine. But to me, a big part of sales is just communication with other humans. And if somebody says, well, I hate sales, it's like, well, what you're really saying is you hate communicating with other people. And that's not the case for me. I love communicating with other people, and I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to help people solve a problem. There's all things I love. I like talking to people, I like communicating, and I like solving problems. And that's just what sales is. And I think people sometimes have the wrong idea on what sales truly is, and they're thinking about the used car sales person or whatever. But to me, I think it's a real pleasure to deal with some of the greatest salespeople that I've ever dealt with. They actually are helpful. They actually do solve a problem. And they're actually really enjoyable to have relationships with in business, and that's the kind of salesperson I want to be.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think that when I hated sales, I didn't really know what I was talking about. I thought that I had a bunch of different jobs where, I worked for a big coffee company, and it was like, all right, well, there's different bonuses if you sell more up charges of this and that. And it's funny because I would always get the bonuses because I would be like, oh, have you tried our croissants? They're delicious. But it's because I actually liked the croissants, right? But when they would say things like, oh, we have a lot of this pastry that we're not selling, can you try to push it? I would feel gross selling it because I didn't like it, right? So for me, and then they would be like, is it good? And I'm like, well, some people like it.
Super important. You got to believe in your product.
Right. And so I think that any time that we've had to sell, whether it's an actual product or an idea, convince so-and-so to do this or whatever, every time we've had to encourage somebody to take an action that we feel we're not really in agreement with, I think that those are the moments that make us not like sales, because then we think
that's right.
You go back to those moments where you were kind of gross. That's and you're like, I don't want to be gross. I'm not a gross person. But in reality, that's not the case.
100%.
I mean, and again, if you do believe in your product, and in our case, we totally do.
100%.
So the show must go on, and I want you to tell me, has there been any changes within your team? I know that you already have a remote team. You have people all over the United States working for you. So your companies are probably pretty used to working remotely, but since the quarantine, has anything else changed?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we have every single person on Skype. We always have. We've had everybody on Skype. We have divisional chats like marketing, sales, production, company-wide chat, and everybody's very engaged. And we've always been that way. But I mean, obviously you do go through some barriers, like when you're sitting up at home. There's things that I do at the office and how we run people. But we signed up for Zoom at the beginning of the year, serendipitously, because we were going to be using it for sales, and we have been using it for sales. But so that's been nice, because I've been able to get on the camera with the entire team and kind of reassure them and talk them through certain things. And it's just kind of pivoting a little bit and quickly adapting. And I think that when for me, I've never worked from home. I love going to the office, and Ben goes to the office, and we have our sales admin go to the office and things like that. So there's this group esprit at the office that is really fantastic. But I think that one of the key things that we're doing right now is just more communication. Get on Zoom, get on Skype, keep the communication going, and just stay very closely connected with the team, and also be really, really transparent with updates. Like, here's where we're at, or we just won this client, or this is what's happening, or we didn't quite get this thing yet, but this is coming. And I've heard feedback from my team, appreciating transparency. And I think that that's a really key thing, because in this kind of market, a lot of people sort of by default go out of communication. And I think that's a really poor strategy. A lot of people just drop out communication, and they either don't communicate with their teammates, or they don't communicate with their clients, or they don't communicate with their prospects, or whatever. And I think it's, somehow anchored in fear and lack of confront or whatever. But one of the things I would encourage is for people to just do more communication. The more communication you can put out there, whether it's with your team or with your customers or whatever, the better. Communication is super important in a day and age like this, and making sure that you're being there and communicating is a key thing. But from a running the team remotely, we've, as I mentioned in a blog, we use Skype, and we use Asana, and we use Google for Work. And so we've been really lucky in terms of kind of the foundation of how we set up Richter, and thankfully from a work standpoint, we've been uninterrupted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I feel we've been going for 25 minutes now. It's been fantastic, but is there anything else you want to say before we finish our chat?
I mean, if anything, I just, if you're watching this or you're listening to this, I encourage you to kind of look at how you can do more of everything, and how you can contribute more and how you can solve problems and innovate and solve problems. There is no scarcity out there. The news makes it seem like there is, but there is no scarcity out there. People need jobs, and it's always going to be like that. And there are things that are going on right now where it's an opportunity to sort of pivot and change roles and do different things like that. I would encourage you to look at that. How can you contribute to the economy? Of course, you need to, pay your bills and find a way to do that, but also keep looking at it from a standpoint of how can you solve problems for other people, and that contributes to the economy. And that's going to be really valuable, and it could actually be a negative situation that turns into a really positive opportunity for you. So keep looking at it, keep trying to solve that problem, and, just never quit, never give up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm honored that you joined me. I knew that you were great, and then I read your bio, and I was like, oh my God, he's even greater. But I think that what you have to say is what has made this conversation just so valuable, at least to me, and hopefully to the people that have joined us today as well.
Thanks for having me.
So till next time, Robert.